Hey, what's up, guys? Node Investor here. The battle for 10K continues. I just realized I'm not sharing my charts. Charts coming. How's it going, guys? Sea of red out there today. Where is the bounce? Is the bounce happening? Hopefully we'll get the charts here up. You should see it by now. Thanks for being here. I thought I'd do a quick live stream for us. Of course, it's never quick. I just like to say that. But I'm just going to post another video. I prefer to post these live streams as opposed to, doing my quick 15-20 minute YouTube video update, because market's just moving so quick by now. By the time I record it and edit it and upload it, price changes all the time. So plus I like the interaction. I like to talk with you guys. So thanks for being here. We got some of the node insiders in the house. Thanks for being here, guys. It is a sea of red today. Of course, Bitcoin breaking support. I always find it kind of comical that when I go online and you look at Twitter or you look at YouTube and, you have all of the obvious thumbnails of Bitcoin double top, Bitcoin breaks support. And it's like, yeah, you think? I guess that's what it takes. Maybe I should take a lesson and make obvious thumbnails. Maybe I'll get more views that way. But thanks for being here, guys. We'll take a look at the charts. Of course, there is the double top here. We were looking at that last week. For those of you that caught the live stream here on Friday, or what was it, Thursday? Friday. And just seeing this playing out, it was a little preemptive, but it has certainly played out that scenario last live stream. I outlined 3 potential scenarios that I was looking at. The first one being this double top, which is right now the one that's playing out. We talked about a potential cup and handle. I mentioned I didn't like the volume signature on the cup and handle, so that was kind of my least likely scenario. And then there was also the potential for a little bit of a wedge pattern, which that obviously didn't play out. And so the double top is in place. I did share, for those of you that are on the Slack group, but I did share this chart here last week as it started to play out, and it's played out almost perfectly here so far. I mentioned here, posted this in the group here. This is a private chart here on my TradingView account, but I posted this here saying, hey, it's a little bit preemptive, but looking at this, here's how I would see it play out. We drop, see a little bit of a bounce, fail below 710.11.7. The key level for me was really a daily close below 10,600, which we saw. We saw a little bit of a bounce above that, but I expect to see more downside here. And that's pretty much how it's played out. You can see here, if I follow through on this chart so far, playing out. Another level to be watching was that 4-hour wick support around 9,800, but that really wasn't much of a support level here, just kind of slicing right through that. So next targets on the downside, there's the psychological 9K number, which is also a little tiny bit of support back here mid-June. There was a brief pause there. And then, anywhere down to the mid 8Ks is really what I'm looking at here for support levels on the way down. If we look at it another way here, this may be a little hard to see on the live screen. Let me brighten up these lines for you here. But what I have drawn on the chart are some Fibonacci retracement lines here. Let me go do that. That should do it. We'll see here. Hopefully you can see that. If not, I'll just read out the numbers to you guys. But what we're looking at here is you're looking at the Fibonacci retracement levels, basically from the start of the big breakout day here in August, or April 1st, to the top of this peak. So the just shy of 14K, 13,970 to be exact. And some retracement levels looking at that right here. You saw the 382, which is the first retracement level, held pretty well, and we saw that bounce, which ultimately made a lower high, and that's really what kicked off this double top. Then a couple days back, we saw a drop right to that. Again, a bounce right off that 382. Generally, the second time it tests 382, it doesn't hold, and so we're seeing that. Next target down is the 50% retracement, which lines up pretty close with this support level around 9K. Here, the exact number is 9,055, and so we're pretty close to that. And then below that, the 618 retracement, which is sub 8K. So we'll see. We'll go there. But that's what I'm looking at here on the downside. But we'll see. There's a talk about the CME futures, the gap futures here. That's, I believe, 8Ks. And so there's a lot of scenarios there to be playing out. But we've been looking at this for a little bit now. We talked about how oversold or overbought this was. We needed a little bit of a pullback. On the weekly chart, this is just a pullback to the 10 EMA on the weekly, which is still around that lower 9Ks. And so big picture, right, the trend is it's kind of a normal pullback. I mean, this was a massive run-up that we saw in all of 2019, right? If you look at where prices were at the start of 2019 to now, to the peak, I mean, you can't expect that the second half of 2019 would be, exactly the same without any sort of a pullback. And so we're seeing that pullback finally. Next level down on the weekly chart again lines up with that 618 retracement, which is a 22 EMA on the weekly chart, which at this point is just shy of 8K. I don't think we go straight down to 8K. We're going to see a little bit of a bounce along the way. So the moving average will likely be higher by the time that happens. But those are the levels to be watching. And of course, on the way down, there's going to be this significant support, which was the big breakout level. If it continues lower that far down, then, the 6K range, 7K range. But we're getting a little ahead of ourselves at this point. So we're just one day at a time, as I like to say, see how the broader trend is doing. But for now, this is playing out almost perfectly in terms of the double top scenario that I was outlining there. If we do a measured move target on the double top, you take I usually go with the lower high just to be more conservative on my downside targets. But if you extend that down, that projects all the way down to 8,100, 8,200. So, anywhere between here and there could certainly be the first, major low support. But volume is starting to spike. You're seeing a little bit of climactic action in the near term. Definitely due for a bounce here on the 1 hour chart. Very oversold here. Looking at the volume, there was a big spike earlier. There was a small, not even a bounce attempt. There was a pause, but then seeing this pull back here. So watching for a potential bounce here, seeing the MACD starting to tick up. So on the 1 hour view, would not surprise me if we start to see some bounce action here on the way up. First target on the way up is 9,900. And then above that, the real big level to be watching is this 10.6. That's now support, or resistance on the way up. That was the prior daily closing support. Once it broke below 10.6 for me on a closing basis, that was really the start of the double top confirmation. So on the way up, that's going to be your first real resistance level to be watching. If we go to the 4 hour view, that lines up pretty well here with this 22 EMA. So anywhere between here and there, just kind of looking at bounces. I'm not looking at any real long-term long trades here at this point. I did some oversold bounce scalps here as well a couple days back. Once it broke 10K and popped back above, took a little bit of a trade there yesterday, closed out, into that upper 10Ks. There was some good discussion here on the Slack group talking about, is that the low? And yesterday, obviously things changed, but yesterday I was basically saying, anything below 11.7, 11.8, this zone here for me is just a bounce, and I'm looking at still downside action. And I mean, I specifically wrote to the Slack group yesterday saying, if anything, this is probably not a bad short entry going into 11K. And that really proved to be the case for now. So gonna just wait it out. The trend is your friend. And in this case, the trend is downward. And so the higher probability trades, if you're trading, are to the downside as opposed to trying to guess at the bottom. And so for now, just taking it easy, being a little bit more cautious, but we are due for a bounce. Nothing goes straight up, nothing goes straight down. There's always bounces along the way. As far as the reasons, right? People are like, why is this happening? What's going on? Is it the regulation? Was it Trump's tweet? Was it Facebook's Libra? That certainly has been a little bit of a factor in all of the noise. But let's be honest, some of these technicals were just due for a pause. There was a lot of profit taking kicking in here. We saw the lower high. Of course, it made a smaller drop. So it's just a number of factors. It's stop losses kicking in. Once certain things are breached, you're seeing the moving averages start to roll over. There is clearly a shift in the trend. And that's just kind of part of the process, especially after a 4x move up that we saw in 2019. We were due. It was just a matter of when. As you guys know, we were just due for a pause. But man, it's been brutal in the alt land space. If we go to some of the alt pairs here versus BTC, look at NEO, BTC, just getting bludgeoned, smackarooed to the downside here. No end in sight. It's crazy oversold, but I'm not too inclined to do any knife catching it. I'm going to wait for some volume to kick in, some more climactic action, but this is one that's on my radar for a potential bounce. If you look at the daily chart, it's just been straight down here, and so many of them just have that pattern right now. We'll go through some of the other charts here, but it's just been downside other than a few, short-lived pops to the upside versus Bitcoin. Versus Bitcoin, it's just been pretty much straight down. Even Litecoin, right? Litecoin was one of the stronger names here and just continues to get smacked here. Litecoin USD breaking below that $100 mark here. That's pretty much it. We're not going to see the $170 for the halvening. The halvening priced in here was the peak around 140s. Here we are, $80 Litecoin. Like I said, there's going to be bounces along the way, but man, what a big top that's been put in place here. BNB, another big drop here. That's been in a downtrend for some time. So, this is kind of just similar to the discussion I had last time when we were on the live stream with you. The long-term hold versus the trading approach, right? During the big moves, like what we saw for most of the first half of 2019, obviously, buy and hold wins, clearly wins. I mean, if you're accumulating down here and you're going for the long end, absolutely, that's the best strategy, right? Buy and hold. The challenge is it's always hindsight, right? It's always, well, if I would have just held, but you could say the same thing in 2017, right? Oh, if I would have just held, but let's not forget 2018 when everybody saw this massive drop from 18K to 5K in about 6 weeks, and then through the rest of the year, man, oh man, right? It was painful, and people were just wishing they would have taken some profits and they would have moved out of the way. In this scenario, obviously, buy and hold did not win versus trading strategies. So, it's a mixed bag. It's never going to be one or the other. It's always a mixed bag. There are certainly some good strategies that you can use to kind of mix the two and kind of get the best of both worlds. But you're never going to get 100% of the entire move up or down unless you were just lucky enough to buy at the exact bottom and sell at the exact top, which of course is not realistic, people. But, it's just always a little bit of a different strategy. Depends on how much time you have. Ideally, a good way to do it is, dollar cost averaging when prices are at extreme lows and starting to hit, which is what I was starting to do here in December and November. Didn't buy as much as I was hoping, but started buying along the way here and on the way up, right? When things get climactic and parabolic and you start to see these crazy moves, maybe you don't go 100% out, but what's wrong with taking a little off the table, selling into strength, and then starting to reaccumulate when things start to take a little bit of a dip on the way down, right? It just kind of cash flowing the position, if you will. You don't have to necessarily go 100% in, 100% out all at one time. You can scale in and scale out along the way, longer term, maybe accumulating with the dollar cost averaging kind of approach to trading and investing. So those are just some thoughts here, just because I know, when things are going parabolic higher, everyone's like, I wish I would have just held and this trading sucks. And when things are crashing, people are, oh, I wish I would have sold and taken some profits. And it's like, okay, well, you got to do one or the other or both, right? All right, so let me catch up on some of these comments, and then we will take a look at the price charts here. But looking at the BTC dominance continues to rise as many of the alts are just getting bludgeoned, hitting some pretty big peaks there. Looking at the combined BMI market value, for those of you that are members of the Node Insiders system here, this has been a pretty accurate indicator here. Has been signaling caution and weak for some time and just continues to show red here across the board. So has been pretty good here. If we look at the watch list, not a whole lot. You're seeing some popping off the list here, but this is, again, not a whole lot there. We'll take a look at some of those here shortly, but all in all, definitely a sea of red here. How do we get an invite to the Slack group here? I will catch up with you, Jack. I apologize if I've missed an email or something. I did take a vacation here at the start of July, so that could have been it. But I thought I sent out all the invites for the subscribers. There's basically two ways to get an invite to the Slack group. If you are a subscriber to the alert system, every couple of days I'll go through and just kind of batch send the invites out to new members. Or if you have purchased the 4-step cryptocurrency trading course at noteinvestor.com, you will also get an invite. And I get alerted on my phone when those purchases come through, so I'm usually pretty quick to send the invite. If you've done one of those two and you have not seen the invite, just absolutely, I'll get back to you. Send me a message on Twitter. It's probably the best way, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. So, all right, let's take a look at here. You bought the dip here, buy on red days. Let's see, bull market started. We had the same feeling, offload over 7,000 BTC. Yep. Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Tops are generally distributions, right? You see the big drop, and then a little bit of a rally, some more distribution, and now you're seeing the weight of that kind of take place here. We saw the same thing here in 2017, 18, right? You saw the drop, big rally, big drop, rally. It's just this massive top put in place, and then that really kicked off the trend to the downside. Not saying that we're going to see this, year-long down phase, but generally speaking, the tops, the turning points are, not a one-day event. They're generally multi-days, even down here at the lows, right? You saw the low in December, and you saw some kind of choppy action before the broader trend really started to turn. Okay, thanks, Jack. I'll get back to you on Twitter. Thanks for letting me know. All right. So another thing I want to ask you guys, and this is me just kind of asking for some information as a favor. For those of you that are subscribers to this or members of the Slack group, or even if you're not, feel free to chime in. What would you like to see in terms of additional features to this site here? I'm kicking around a few ideas with some of the guys here that are helping with this project. We're looking at potentially some live signals that are based on a couple of automated trading strategies that we have. Obviously, there's alerts. We're going to look at some push notification for some of these alerts. I know some of you guys like the Slack group where I would do the private channel and post my trades and my real-time executions. Maybe more of that, which that could be challenging for a number of reasons. So just some thoughts. What other things? I may be totally missing some other ideas that you guys are looking for. So just let me know. Feel free to post that in the comments here. All right, so let's take a look at that here. Let's start with some of the names here that I'm watching here. I mentioned some of these alts versus Bitcoin, but if we look at them from the USD pair first, looking at the big names, starting with Ethereum, just the smacking here. Let me clear some of these lines here. And man, things have really changed since last Friday. We were talking about lower lows and lower highs and waiting for confirmation. And that's why it's always good to just be patient and wait for the broader trend to show some confirmation. And man, this just broke support straight down, breaking that $200 mark here after peaking out right around $360. So it's been quite the fall versus USD. If we look at it on the BTC pair, even worse, right? Already down 50% since that high. So quite the move down here. If we look at ETH BTC, just has been ugly for some time and just continues to break down. Another thing that I noticed here, it did finally break that long time support that I was talking about here versus on the Coinbase chart here. So the highs back here in 2016, the breakout point, multiple levels of support. At the last live stream, I mentioned that technically we had already broken below last week. We were already breaking below that. It just continues to move lower. So big picture for ETH continues to look negative versus Bitcoin. Looking at Litecoin here, Litecoin USD, of course, has also seen a big rollover here, turning of the trend, a breaking of the uptrend that we saw on this broader weekly chart here. Kind of what I consider the price run up to the halvening, which was baked in, and now that the halvening is approaching, I think that's already been factored in, and we're seeing a pretty big roll over here, along with the price of Bitcoin. And it's unfortunate for the alts, right? Bitcoin was having a crazy rally, and every time it rallied, the alts were getting smacked. The pauses didn't give much reprieve to the alts, and then when Bitcoin rolls over, the alts get smacked. Oh man, they just cannot win. But looking at some of the key levels here for Litecoin, Litecoin 113, 115 around there was really the key support level that broke down, clearly accelerating to the downside here. Next level down is basically down here, which it just breached here today. That was around that $85 mark here. That was a round psychological number at 100, but that was sliced right through here a few days back. And so, just really looking ugly. If we do some retracement analysis on Litecoin, going from the very beginning of the move here in December to the peak that we saw here most recently, you run it to the top. We've already cut below the 382 level, 50% retracements right around $83, slicing below that today. That also lined up with this support, which didn't hold. And then the 618 is going to put you closer to $70 here. So again, that $70 mark also lines up with some support there. So that's going to be the next big target that I'm looking at here on the downside for Litecoin here. Let's see Litecoin BTC. Learn, and keep learning. If that's a good comment, man, because if you truly are going to be active in trading or even investing, the learning never ends, the improvement never ends, and that's just something that's going to be helpful. The world is changing so fast. Automation's coming in. You got trading bots. You got all kinds of stuff, and it's just there's always something to learn. It doesn't mean you have to change your strategy every time, but there's always something to learn. And honestly, the technicals and the indicators are actually the easy part. The hard part about trading is the emotions, the psychology. That takes a lot longer to learn. And that's not something you can really learn from a book. That's really a lot of experience, right? That just takes time to learn. So looking at Litecoin, this broader downtrend that's in place, until it starts to turn this, and generally you'll expect it to go flat here a little bit, maybe down test the downside. And then if it starts to turn the corner here, I'd be looking at maybe some bounce action here. But for now, the downtrend is still very much in place. So I learned that I suck at trading and suck at hodling. I think we all do to some extent. It's the nature of it, unfortunately. Let me see. Definitely real-time trades is something you would like. Okay, I'll definitely keep that in mind. Push notifications, something that's important to us, and we're going to find ways to do that here on this platform here. Real-time trades is a little bit trickier here. I've done some of that here in the Slack group with posting my charts and my updates. But there's some pros and cons to that. Obviously, time zone differences and people not being around and all that stuff here. So we're looking to do a little bit of a hybrid approach where maybe we do some sort of like trade bot signals that then I will comment on and decide whether or not to take for various reasons. So, but keep the comments coming. So there's Litecoin looking at XRP. XRP getting smashed. Actually, XRP was on the strong BMI watch list here today, popping off the lows versus Bitcoin. Finally, maybe. So we got XRP, Ethereum Classic, Bitcoin Gold, Waves. That's probably it. We'll look at those here. Add scam alerts. Let's see here. XRP. So this is a long time 4-hour chart. There was some bullish divergence starting to show up here on the RSI. Finally, versus Bitcoin at least, right? Obviously on the USD pair, it's going to get hit because of the price of BTC. But versus Bitcoin, seeing a little bit of a low being put in here on XRP and popping off the lows with some pretty good volume here. Next level up, if it can continue to rally here, it's going to be around that 33, call it 3,400 on the BTC pair. And then, kind of these levels up here. So that'll be something to be watching. Maybe it's done. Maybe finally it's going to bounce, but who knows? I mean, it's had a few small attempts along the way. Volume here is pretty good here on the day. How's it look on the USD? Of course, it's red along with Bitcoin and everything else, but there's some pretty big volume spike happening down here. So will be one to pay attention to. Right now, I mean, I'm on the trading account, I'm flat. I'm 100% flat, have been for some time other than some quick scalps to the upside. But on the alt side, I'm keeping an eye on the BTC pairs to see if they start to pop. But ultimately, I'm going to be looking at, the USD pairs from an entry perspective, just because I'm sitting from, coming from that angle. Let me see what else we got here. So we'll look at, I'm going to just kind of quickly cycle through. I'll do 2 or 3 more, and then I'll let you guys decide what else we want to look at here. Looking at EOS, man, EOS has seen such the drop here, even at the USD side, looking at this pair from the most recent high I mean, it's just been climactic, just straight down at one point here, down 56% today. Just a huge drop. Looking at the 4-hour view, very oversold. You saw a big wick here on the prior candle that we just closed here, but man, what a drop that has been on EOS, down to $3. Well, 350. Hey, gotta give it the extra 50 cents. That means something. EOS BTC is something I was watching the other day. Didn't follow through. I was watching this upper level to see if it could break above that. And then the downside here, which it did slice right under on some massive volume and popping right back above. A little bit of a divergence showing up here as well. So could be one that versus BTC is maybe ready to have a little bit of a counter trend bounce. Not saying it's the end of the drop, but it's going to be bounces along the way. This could be definitely one to be watching here. Very often when you see these rotations happen, when the alts finally catch a little bit of a bid, I've noticed EOS, ETH, Tron, those are some of the names that tend to do pretty good here in the short run. Cardano is another one that will try to bounce back. But man, look at this drop versus Bitcoin, even since the start of June. What a move that has been for EOS, down about 60% versus BTC here. I'll do one more. I'll do Cardano, and then we'll take a look at your charts here. And I'm going to try to move quickly so I'm not on the stream here for an hour and a half. I'll try to make it a little bit of a shorter one here today. Just wanted to get a quick update on these markets, as it has just been a sea of red. Notifications for real-time trades, that would be good. That would be good, yeah. All right. XRP, I know I saw that Trump tweet. Trump tweets. I don't know. You can't really take Trump tweets too seriously. But they do move the market, even on the stock side. I've noticed there'll be times I'm trading the stock market and you just see Trump tweet and the market just has a big move out of nowhere. Oh, man. But looking at Cardano here, another one on BTC pair, just crazy oversold. Maybe it's ready for a little bit of a pop. On most of these, got to wait for some confirmation, but the level I'd be watching is probably around that 614, 610 Satoshi level. But, man, the smackening. All right. If you had to buy just one alt today, not BTC, but just one alt, which one would it be? And I'll start looking at some of those charts. I'm going to take a swig here of my juice. But man, oh man. As far as the BTC dominance question goes, how high could it go? If you go back, I mean, this is the yearly chart going back to last summer. If we expand that out a little bit more, there was some good discussion around that here. Talking about how at one point, the BTC dominance was, in the 90s and then the 80s. I saw a chart the other day talking about the altcoin cycle and, some big picture multi-year trend lines using alt BTC dominance. The challenge with that is you got to remember that prior to 17, right? Prior to 2017, the vast majority of the alts that are at the top 50 of the list right now didn't either exist or had very little volume in terms of trading. And it wasn't until early 2017 when we had these massive alt rallies. You remember Ethereum, right? Even in 2016 was, I remember trading that and buying Ethereum, my first Ethereum at $10 and $12, right? And it wasn't until December and all that when it started to really pop and it went to $40 and $50. And that's really what kicked off this massive altcoin rally. And then we had the ICO boom. We had a whole lot of other factors. So the point I'm trying to make is the pre-17 market, all this history back here, was a much, much different market than it is today. Not to say that, BTC dominance can't go back up to 80, because it certainly could. I mean, many of these alts, as we know, are not going to survive. But using kind of trends and trend lines associated with, alts, when most of them weren't even trading that much volume back here, it's kind of a little bit of flawed data, in my opinion. So just some thoughts there. How high could it go, right? I mean, we've already exceeded this last little peak here. We're basically right back to this peak that we saw here in April of 2017 before the big drop. I mean, could it hit back up to 70s? Absolutely, it could. I mean, it's not that far away. So just something to note there. But, I'm not going to guess, just because, I mean, the BTC dominance is not something I really trade off of per se in terms of absolute levels. I will certainly look at the trend in terms of how is it trending, because that's important, right? If BTC is trending higher, then clearly alts are losing ground, so you're better off holding Bitcoin. But in terms of what are the targets, I'm gonna wait until BTC dominance hits 70%, and then I'm selling and buying alts. Like, I don't really use it that way, personally. So it's not going to be. I'm not going to do a whole lot of forecasting on the dominance charts. I mean, it's an interesting discussion, no doubt, just because it's a big question, especially if you're trading crypto, right? The question's always, should I just accumulate and buy Bitcoin, or should I try to multiply my Bitcoin with some alts, right? And in 2017. That was a fabulous thing to do. In 2018 is a little bit harder. 2019 has been mostly BTC since April. All right, let's go through some of these here, looking at the charts. I will skip Litecoin. We just covered it here. Let's do NEO. Link. Yeah, Link is looking pretty interesting here. Let's do Link. I'm going to do Link BTC here first. Obviously, one of the stronger ones this year. If you go to the daily chart, just has outperformed Bitcoin by a large margin on the way up, even as Bitcoin was rallying. But here in the last couple of weeks, we've seen a pretty decent pullback, and the pullback was starting to get a little deep, in my opinion. It's still above this prior breakout point, but this is a key support level. So definitely be watching it here. If it breaks below this, then I think that's probably going to be the end of the move. But for now, it's still making a higher low. Technically, it's still above this prior breakout point, but it's given back quite a bit from a percentage basis from the top versus Bitcoin's already down nearly 40%. So the trend in the near term is still very much downward. If you look at the 4-hour chart, still clearly trending downward. A little bit of a juncture here as things start to narrow out. So if it can reclaim some of these 4-hour moving averages and break this trend line, that'd be ideal. And holding the support, something to look at here on the way up. Link USD, it's got a much shorter time history, but same thing, right? Just this trend line that I'm watching, breaking lower here along with Bitcoin today, but that's what's influencing the Link chart here. Matic, huh? That's the one coin you would buy if you had to buy anything today, Matic? I guess I haven't done enough research on Matic to understand why, but from a technical perspective, still very much in a downtrend, losing a lot of the gain that it had here, kind of back to these opening lows here that it had when it first debuted in April, May, pretty much right back to that point. See if that level holds. It is a multiple support point here. You saw that low in June, and then here in the last couple of weeks, holding that again. Matic. All right, NEO. You would buy NEO? Man, NEO actually probably wouldn't be a bad buy here. It's tempting, man. NEO just dropped from $20 down to $10. Quite the drop. It is tempting here. It is breaking below that support level too, though. Oof. NEO oversold. I'm looking at NEO from the BTC pair just because it is very oversold versus Bitcoin. NEO BTC is getting the smackarooed. NEO's been a tough trade versus Bitcoin here. I took a few trades on it, along the way here, and finally just said, that's it. No more trading NEO until it breaks above this level here on a closing basis, which of course it never did. But it was a tough trade. It was holding up versus Bitcoin. On the USD side, it was a better trade, but versus Bitcoin, man, just chop and flop before finally breaking down, and has been a very steep trend lower, since the start of July here, finally losing that support. All right, let's see here. Catch up on some of these comments. Got quite a bit here. Deutsche Bank, yeah, I saw that. No, when I look at the dominance charts and patterns and all that stuff, I don't analyze it the same way as I would a normal price action, because people aren't trading the dominance chart. It's not psychology, right? When you're looking at a price point, like an actual instrument trading like this, right? This is buyers, true buyers and sellers showing up. So it makes sense to do analysis on this, support, resistance levels, all that stuff. On the dominance chart, it's a derivative of some of this action, so it's not exactly a pure chart. It's like, you know, and if you do this, I apologize, I'm making fun of you, but I think it's silly when people do analysis like on the BTC shorts or the ETH shorts. Like, patterns don't matter on this chart, right? If you see a double bottom or anything like that, like, it doesn't matter. You know, it's just the extreme points. And honestly, lately it hasn't mattered that much because you see kind of these phantom shorts that just suddenly disappear, longs that suddenly appear and all that. So I don't. Short answer is I don't. All right, let's see here. What else? Cardano, EOS, you would do that. 0x. All right, take a look at some of those here. All right. Any entry point for NEO? Let's go back to that real quick. As far as entry point goes, I'm not going to try to guess the bottom on the BTC pair. It's just going to be when the trend starts to turn. You know, you had a little bit of a shot at it here, but clearly this was just a little bit of a bear, you know, wedge, a little bit of a descending triangle before breaking lower. What I'd like to see is, you know, a pop reversal and then maybe a pullback, higher low. And when it starts to turn the corner, those are the type of signals that I look for from a price action perspective. From a pure support resistance perspective, if we go to the daily chart, you know, it's kind of in no man's land here. It's had quite the drop versus BTC here, hidden all-time lows. So many of these are. If you look at it from the USD pair, you know, versus from this angle, you know, you're kind of in the middle zone here as well. Next major support is down around $9, so you're getting close to that. So, you know, I generally just don't like to catch the falling knife, if you will. I'll kind of wait for a little bit of confirmation. Ontology. If I do the catch falling knife scenario, which I will for BTC a little bit, it'll be scaling into these oversold conditions generally. Ontology, another one that's been smackaroot here. Is this another one that's long-time lows? Yeah, all-time lows versus Bitcoin. Man, so many alts are hitting all-time lows versus Bitcoin. Just getting crazy oversold here. How does ONT USD look? Very oversold here. Look at that. The daily RSI is hitting low 20s. This is the last major breakout point, and you're getting really close to that. Did not miss 0x. We'll take a look at that one next. Let's see here. If I do a retracement on this guy, I'm sure it's way deep here. Yeah. Ugly. ONT is one I've been eyeing as well. NEO and ONT, mostly for balance trades. I'm not saying they're going to be the big winner in 2019, but who knows? All right, let's look at 0x. 0x, I'm going to do BTC pair. Long time lows here on this bad boy. Very much a downtrend still. Seeing a little bit of volume spike, but like most of these, I want to see the trend turn a little bit. Moving averages start to cross over bullish. 4-hour view, seeing a little bit of price action here. Was popping. I noticed it did hit the alert system earlier. 0x was one of the few names popping here. Let's go to the alerts real quick, see what else moved today. We saw Wax move yesterday, Ethereum Classic, XRP, Raven yesterday. That's really it. I don't think there's been any today. 0x USD. Let's look at that on Coinbase. Potentially a little double bottom here on this 4-hour view. A little choppy though. There, maybe. I'd be waiting until it actually could close on a 4-hour chart above 26 cents. All the IEOs are bleeding. I know the IEOs are getting smashed. Bitcoin Gold. Yeah, I saw Bitcoin Gold on the alerts too. Bitcoin Gold. What? Oh, that's hilarious. Bitcoin Gold. Jeez. All right, I'll skip that one. I generally don't trade Bitcoin Gold. Same with ETC. Ethereum Classic was hitting the alerts, but it's just one I just don't generally trade. Ethereum Classic. All right, let's see what else here. I'm going to quickly cycle through these charts. IOTA breaking some support there. Dash, yuck, down to $100. Dash, wow. Dash went from 184 to $100. OMG, back to $1.36. Had a nice run too. Quantum from 570 down to 270. Yikes. Tron. Breaking down Tron. Oh, man. Alts just can't catch a break. Zcash, 112 down to 67. And this is all like in the last 2 weeks, guys. This is crazy. Hey, Dash Masternode, 60K. Maybe. Zill. QNT, yeah. Let's see QNT here. That was one of the few that was holding up here. Still, but it is feeling a little toppy here. Still holding up relatively well versus Bitcoin, but I'd be watching out if it starts to close below that line. Not going to look too pretty here. Needs to break out and invalidate this potential top. But versus Bitcoin, it's holding up. Obviously, USD, not quite as pretty. Who's going to catch the knife? Yeah, Cardano is another one. Probably Cardano, Neo, EOS. Those are the three bigger names that I'm watching for some divergence here. But, man, I don't know. You could have said catch the knife here, here, and here, and just still bleeding. Yeesh. Digibyte. All right, we'll do Digibyte. That's a name from yesteryear. Check it out on the Bittrex. Interesting. Digibyte's been ranging here at the lows versus Bitcoin. Not exactly popping, but has been putting in a little bit of a range here for the last few weeks. So definitely one that's maybe finding a low. At least it's not going straight down like some of the others. You know, I really do think that the U.S. exodus from Binance is going to cause more dump. You know, because people have a couple of options, right? It's if you're holding things that primarily trade volume on Binance, either you're going to just not trade them at all, or you might hold some for some long term. But then the question is, if you want to get out of it, then where do you go, right? And your options are a little bit more limited, especially for a larger position. If you got a smaller position, there's plenty of options. You can do some of the other exchanges, but if you got a larger position, you know, what are you going to do? Go to KuCoin. That's going to be a good option, you know, unless they decide to follow suit, like Binance. I'm not too excited about Binance US personally. You know, one of the primary reasons I liked Binance was because they had so many other coins that many of the exchanges didn't, and then the volumes were there as well. My expectation is Binance US is not going to list all the coins that Binance does. That's just a simple matter of it, and that's the reason they're splitting it up and kicking out the U.S. traders because of regulation and questions around is this a security or not. They also will not do margin while the U.S. folks are there, so there's going to be some of the reasons. But yeah, I don't think people are going to want Binance US personally. And you know, if you can't trade all the coins, then you have two options. Are you going to either dump it, go to something else, or hold a little and try to find another exchange? Which, I mean, how many people are really going to do that personally? You know, I'm not. It's not from a trading account perspective. I could care less. I just go move somewhere else. It's unfortunate, but oh well. KCS, yeah, I think that's going to be a winner too. I mean, at least in the near term. Golem, oh man, Golem. There's a name from yesteryear. I would try to catch some knives if I had any fingers left. Oh, no kidding, man. All right, let's see here. Random question. Say about 5 BTC on Coinbase, moved 2 to a hardware wall, left through an exchange. If I sold first in, first out with tuck bet, does that apply? Oh man, you're asking me an accounting question. I pay people for that. I don't know. Oh man. All right, let me keep cycling through some of these, and then I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. I just wanted to get us together here and see the carnage. See the carnage live. XLM, Stellar Lumens versus Bitcoin. XRP. You know, USD pair is not a whole lot versus BTC. There's a little bit here. Icon, yeah, let's go look at Icon real quick. Icon Bitcoin. Icon ever going to catch a break? All-time lows for Icon? Yep. All-time lows for Icon on Binance, at least. Finding a little bit of a range here. When I start to see these, if you're inclined to do some, some breakout trading off the lows, obviously it's a reversal, lower probability trade. What I pay attention to are these little ranges. I won't necessarily buy the dips, but I'll start paying attention when you see this for a potential move out of range here. And there's really two ways that I like to do that. One is, you take a little bit right at the breakout points on a closing basis. The alternative is you wait for the trend to turn, and then you look for a pullback, higher low entry, and then you take it there when it starts to move higher. At that point, you have a little bit more confirmation that, hey, broke above resistance, and it's holding, and it pulls back. As we know, we've seen this happen a lot of times where the alts are just getting hit really hard versus Bitcoin, and then they have those massive moves out of nowhere, right? I mean, you've seen them back here where it's like really tight range, and then double-digit percentage move to the upside, right, out of nowhere. Here in this case, it was plus 25%. But then you always get this little pullback, little pause, retracement. After that, that's where I like to get in, right? You don't have to get in at the exact bottom. And that's why I'm, don't need a FOMO, especially when the trend is not in your favor, right? When the downtrend is just so strong. I'm okay just kind of waiting for those pauses, those reversals to happen, and the strong volume to kick in. All right. I think we did OMG already. Not that OMG. Shoosh. Eesh. Golem. All right, I'll look at Golem just for kicks. Golem on Binance. How's it look on Bittrex? Back in the day, Golem on Bittrex. Even on Trex, it's hitting all-time lows. But you heard my spiel on Golem during the last live stream, so I'm not sitting in. All right, let's go look at BTC here. A couple more. Looking like we're finally getting a little bit of a bounce. I think we're due for an oversold bounce. On the way up here, I'm looking at the 1 hour charts. Near-term targets on the 1 hour charts. First bounce target's going to be around that 9,900 level. If it can get higher than that, anything sub 10.6 for me is still just an oversold bounce. That was really the breakdown points from the double top on the way down. So on a closing basis, especially at the daily chart, 10.6 is going to be an important level to capture. And then above that, right, you're going to have a pretty strong resistance level going into this major level that just couldn't hold 11Ks. So going to be a lot of hurdles along the way up, unless you see some very strong action, strong reversal. I'm going to just take it slow, kind of kicking it easy here for now. I actually took a break from the private groups for a couple of weeks. We were running from the 15th to the 15th of every month. Decided to take a pause on that here, kick it back in August for those of you that are in the Slack group here. But that's what I'm looking at here for now. Just going to wait until we get some further confirmation. But on the way up, any bounces into 10.6 until we start to see some, some convincing, I'm going to just be cautious here. Not to say this oversold bounces can't happen, but clearly the trend has shifted. You got a double top playing out now, and the trend is not your friend unless you're looking to buy a little bit lower. Major support that I'm watching right now is, that 8,800 level on the daily basis here. That's, on Binance, lines up pretty well. So, 9K, 8,800. There's the gap fill futures there. So another level to be watching. Burst coin, yeah. Bitcoin Cash, I did have a little bit of a pop here. Seen some volume off the lows. On the daily chart, still below the 10 EMA. So this is just kind of first attempt off of that. On the 4 hour view, certainly getting a little bit of a bid here. Something to watch here if we can hold above that. Okay. Well, that's going to do it for today, guys. Thanks for being here. As always, if you want more information, check out nodeinsiders.com for some of those alert systems and more things we have coming, or nodeinvestor.com to buy the course if you are interested in learning more about the technical analysis, trading strategies, risk management, and all that good stuff. That's going to do it for today, guys. I appreciate you being here as always. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe if you already are not a subscriber. See how the day goes. Talk to you guys next time. Take care, everyone.